I ran an artist-run space in my apartment for about 8 years, and I was able to meet a lot of local artists, many from the Bronx, but also throughout New York City. And given the current rhetoric around immigration, I was invited in May of 2024 by the director of the space to create an exhibition. I really wanted to invite exclusively immigrant artists that had entered the country undocumented as minors, which is my case. And I've always felt that being in this country as an immigrant, you're always seen as an outsider in some strange way, despite the fact that you are doing the things that everybody else is doing.
I am so happy to be one of the organizers for this show because we wanted to respond to all this hate our community is enduring with love, which is why we chose this title of Amo Porque S.O.S. Pueblo, for the very reasons that our community is undergoing so much persecution and violence and disappearance. We want to say, no, we love you for crossing borders, for daring to feed your family, because that's what my father and my mother did when they brought me here across the border at the age of 3. And that's what I've been trying to do for my niece and generations to come, and how we feed our community.
I actually first approached the Clemente. Libertad is a good neighbor of mine. I've known Libertad for more than 20 years. And when I mentioned to her the project, she was right on board immediately, because it also falls into a beautiful project that they have that is called Historias. And it's a project that I'm so glad that they're doing it and that it's happening now in my lifetime, because being a Latina in New York, you always wonder, like, why hasn't anybody else really focused on the stories and the contributions that all Latinos have had in New York City? We're a huge component of the city. The city would not be New York City if it weren't for all the contributions of all the Latinos and everybody else, but specifically from the Caribbean, Latin America. So I was very, very excited when she was on board, and she was one of the first persons that I spoke to that was not only going to support the project financially, but in many other ways.
As a co-curator, I always felt supported by Blanca and Marco. And I think the three of us were always on the same line about the work we were doing, about why it was important for us to do it. And also, one of the first times that we sat down and to discuss about what the show would be, to brainstorm ideas, we discovered how similar our immigration stories were. The three of us immigrated from Mexico to the United States when we were young. It just felt important given the deportations, the arrest, and also the fact that this administration just continuously keeps trying to scare us and keeps trying to show us images of mothers, children being arrested. And it was clear to us that this was the moment to do it, and it was not going to be showing any more of that fear, but instead showing beauty.
I could not envision doing something like this in Soho or in Tribeca or anywhere outside of the Bronx itself. This is where the community lives. You bring the art where the community is.
I was obsessed with this concept of giving up your body for some kind of show. At the time I was also exploring the history of drag in New York City, and I just remember going to a show and I saw photographs of the Blue Demon and a family dynamic. And I remember thinking we give so much of our, that person gives up so much of their body. And that's what we do every day. We wear a mask, we don't think about each other enough. And I think we're scared to open up.
An immigrant just means that you were displaced from here to there, that you had to move from your hometown, home language, home food, home environment to a new place against all odds. And we're less than 5% of the global population. So most people choose not to be immigrant. So for me, I think the first thing is that it's usually birthed from tragedy, that there's some severe displacement, economic fallout, war, climate change, hunger, poverty, the reasons that drove my family north of the border. And how do you cross the border with a 3-year-old in your hands, like my father did to me, if it's not out of extreme love, for care, for wanting something better for me.
My name is Catherine Miranda, and in this exhibition I have these 2 digital collages. My work is a lot about legacy and familial history and kind of my personal connection to my family's legacy, and also kind of unfurling my understanding of it and deepening that connection. For this show in particular, I created this top piece using a lot of archival documents as well as familial imagery. I really wanted to highlight the immigration history of my grandparents and kind of that journey down to my mother, who's a first-generation American, and kind of how that travels down to me.
The photograph at the top is a young dancer from the Festival of Mexican Artistic Expression, organized by the Tepeyac Association, which was founded by a Jesuit priest from Mexico, who was hired by the Archdiocese of New York to organize the Mexican community in New York.
So there are a couple of works that really spoke to me, and I think the wings definitely from Patricia, just the way thinking about the opening up and the fact that it's you know, it's so visible and it's just so, it attracts people to want to take a picture there, and because we all want wings, right? We all want wings to be somebody new, to do something new, to try something new, to meet new people. And I think those wings take on a life of their own when people are standing in the middle of it with their own wings. One of the personal challenging things is that my dad has been going through an immigration case, and the day of the opening he was denied. And that, I mean, obviously made me really sad, but that also was just like, yes, that's why I'm here, that's why this show exists, because otherwise I would have just stayed home and been very upset. But instead, having Blanca, having Marco, having folks and having artists who are in their own way being mentally held hostage by immigration authorities was a way of fighting back through showing other people that despite everything that is being said about them, despite the rhetoric that is coming from the US president, we're here, right? And what is holding you up? It's your community. What is holding you up is being surrounded by people who you know care for you and who you also care for.
I've never organized an exhibition where I've had to think about having attorneys during the opening or during the closing. I've never been in a position where I've had to think about the safety of the artists that are participating.
You know, my family has been on this hemisphere for 10,000 years, you know. Donald Trump has only been in office for, I don't know, 140 days or so. So we will survive whatever we have to survive, but not just survive it, but thrive and create.
I'm very saddened that this is taking place, but it also reinforces the fact that more of these things need to happen, that we cannot be obscured or we cannot be in hiding. Quite the contrary, I think this is where we need to be much more open and reveal the ones that we can, the ones that we have that privilege to really voice things that other people cannot voice.
We cannot take this lying down. We have to stand up, speak out. Our voices count. So for me, taking a picture is a way to be witness to what's happening.